Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, and in this video I'm going to look at producing a long panoramic print on the Epson P7500. But I'm also going to address some issues of colour management and image editing which might occur if you're printing images with lots of strong colours in them. In this instance, I'm printing a panoramic view of a sunset taken at the harbour at Amble in Northumberland in the UK. It's a very strongly coloured image, and in fact the colour of it is a key element of how it looks. Now, I've never printed this one at full size before, and I'm printing it on 24-inch roll paper, so it's going to be about 5 foot long, 24 inch by 60 inch. Now, I'm going to show using a custom print size here for doing it, but I'm also going to address some issues with the colour, because this is relevant no matter what size printer you're using. Obviously it's a bit easier with sometimes with printers like this, apart from the handling of the paper. But here's the image that I've opened up. Now, I've got it here on my laptop. First up, I would say this laptop screen is no good whatsoever for doing any editing or judging the colour of this particular image. Now, I've produced the image in a large colour space, in a Pro Photo colour space, 16-bit. This means that the actual colours in the image here are quite possibly, some of them are not displayable on this monitor. Some of the colours are not even displayable on the high-end monitors I use for editing. Is that a problem? No, because it's only some of the colours. I'm working in 16-bit. Now, I'm using Photoshop here because I simply wouldn't use something like Lightroom for images like this. The stitching of the images, I've stitched them elsewhere. So let's just say I have a large sunset image with some very strong colours in it. I want to print this. Now, if I print it as is, I'll get a reasonable looking picture because my monitor's calibrated. I'm using a profile for printing here. This is one of the times I use a bit of soft proofing and look at soft proofing. Now, if you've seen many of my videos, you'll know that normally I studiously avoid using soft proofing very often. It's way overused. Now, there are ways of setting up soft proofing with viewing lights, adjusting your monitor, all kinds of things like that, which make it really quite useful. But the problem is very few people set it up to that level of complexity. And it gets used far too often as a bit of a crutch. Oh, I'll just check and see what it looks like in soft proofing without actually understanding what's going on, or more to the point, the limitations of soft proofing. Now, you can for an image like this, and if this was an image I was producing for an exhibition or something, I would produce test prints. I would select part of the image, I would print it off. I would print a small version of the image on different papers to see how it looked. Now, I've got ICC profiles for the papers. The one I'm using here is just a basic 260-gram luster, very similar to the Epson premium luster paper. In fact, so similar I'm using one of my premium luster profiles that I created for it. That's going to be more than good enough for this. How do I actually get the print? How do I actually manage to get these colours right? Well, previous experience with a variety of printers has told me that different printers handle different colours different ways. Fairly obvious given the different inks in them. This particular printer has an orange ink, obviously has a yellow. It has inks in it that extend the gamut a little bit, the range of colours that can be reproduced, and suggests to me that it should be capable of producing a good picture with this sort of colour in it. Now, a few years ago, I tested the predecessor of this, the P7000, which is still available, which is an excellent printer. I'd happily use it. This is the 7500 with the 12 inks in it, so we've got the full range here. What have I actually done to change the image? Well, I've used in Photoshop the proofing view, and I've set proofing view not on this monitor, on my main monitor, wary of the fact that this is a wide gamut image. And I've looked at, when I did the proofing adjustment, What happens to some of the bright colours? I'm not worried about the shadow detail and things like that. That's taken care of elsewhere really, as long as it looks okay on my calibrated monitor. What I've done is I've used a curve and an adjustment. I've used a hue and saturation adjustment to just bump up the soft proofed version of this. The colour, its saturation has just been pushed up a little bit in the oranges, in yellows, oranges, reds. Now, you can't tell just from soft proofing, even if you set it up properly. You're limited to what the screen can show. There are colours in this image that can't be displayed on the screen. I've used the soft proofing and gamut checking to see that there are indeed a few colours in this image that can't be printed according to the gamut from the profile. And they are mostly deep shadow areas, so not so important here. But the key bit is by checking there is nothing seriously out of gamut in the rest of this. Now, if I was using a much cheaper printer, smaller printer, I may well find that there are colours all over the place out of gamut. Then I get a bit more problems. I need to do a bit more adjustment. But this, I'm using a really top-end printer, and I'm going to print this image directly from Photoshop. Now, I could use Epson Print Layer. I could use a RIP for it. But I'm just using the simple system here of just printing it. And to do that, I need to set up printing, and I'll need to make a custom paper size as well. So I've got the print open here. I'm just going to go to print in Photoshop. Now, I'm doing this on a Mac, and this is an oldish Mac. So I'm really just showing the principles here. If you print on a modern version of Photoshop, the dialogues will be slightly different. Likewise on a newer Mac than this. I know this has a limited gamut because I profiled and calibrated the screen. So I'm just using what I see here as a guide. This is not what is going to be reproduced on the print. I'm hoping the print is actually going to look much better than it does on the, well, not much better, but certainly appreciably better than it does look on this screen, and closer perhaps to the wide gamut, still only Adobe 98 screen, that I'm using upstairs. So I've opened up the print dialog here. I just check on the print settings. Here's settings. I've got a paper size. I've created a custom paper size of 24" by 60". Now I work in inches for this. I have to set things. It's in millimeters as well, so it's 610 by 1530. Work in whatever you're comfortable with. Because it's a 24" paper and I still guesstimate things in inches, it's inches, even if I do my calculations in millimeters. No, that causes trouble for some people, but tough. You know, the real world, these units do interoexist, you know, they coexist. So, you know, get your calculator out if need be. This is 24 by 60 or 610 by 1530 approximately. This is the custom paper size I've made. Now, I've got a preset here. I've set it to use luster paper at the high quality setting. I'm going to use one of my profiles for it. So we've got that. I'm going to wait for it, because this is a big image. This image is a 16-bit image. It's about 1.7 gigabytes, so it's a big image. This is, you know, an old laptop, so it's going to be a bit sluggish. It says here I'm printing at 319 pixels per inch. 319, why not some standard value? Because it makes no difference. As long as I've got enough detail to start with, I'm not going to have a problem. I could print this 600, 650, 700, makes no difference. Well, it would run a bit slower. Tells me here the document's in ProPhoto, which I know here, and that I'm going to tick the send 16-bit data here because I've got a lot of gradations in tone in this. Now, there is some debate as to whether sending 16-bit makes a difference. This is one of those instances where I go, I don't really mind. Now, I've selected relative colorimetric for the rendering intent. That's purely based on what Photoshop here indicates to me and a bit of experience of using these papers. So I'm going to pick that. I've picked my profile for it, and it's now a matter of just pressing print and waiting for a bit. Let's move this off the printer. Photoshop is doing a few things. It's merging layers. That's because I've got some adjustment layers in the image. It hasn't been specifically sharpened. There is a degree of sharpening. For prints like this, which are viewed very large and there's not that much fine detail in, you don't necessarily have to pay too much attention to print sharpening. Now, I've got other prints which I'm going to be showing examples of in other videos where sharpening is a crucial element of the print. In this one, it's not quite such an important area. So I know that the detail areas have had some sharpening applied to them, not much. I'll go into that a bit more when I actually need sharpening. But now it's just a matter of waiting. Well, it's woken up and it rather optimistically says this will be ready in 7 minutes. Now I've pulled the print catcher out. It's a cloth attachment that comes out, paper's dropping out here, and printing is starting. This is where, because I've got this window and the light on the front here, this is where I get my first idea of how the print's going to look. And if I've messed something up, I can kill the print job and just lose a foot or so of paper, no great problem. But having a look at the detail here, there is a lot of detail in this, in the parts of the image. This is where I get to actually look at the print itself, and yeah, it gives a good feel for what it was like that evening when I took the shot. It's a panoramic shot, not taken with a tripod at all, taken with a Canon 5DS, so 50 megapixel source images, literally holding the camera like that, click, 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 a series of pictures, stitch them together, crop them, produce this image. And the colours are looking good. The colours are looking much better. The oranges are more intense. It's definitely looking better than this laptop screen. So if you're going to do work on a laptop like this, get yourself an external screen. It is possible to edit pictures on a small gamut screen like this, knowing its limitations, but it's not something I would choose to do. Anyway, here comes the print. One of the bits I always look at to see whether I've got it right is, because this was a particularly strongly coloured sky, that's why I took the photograph, or photographs, has the blue sky come out okay? And it has in this, and it looks fine. Large prints like this, on this paper, it's dry by the time it comes out at the bottom here. It dries quite quickly, but you still want to handle them with care. So I'm watching it as the print comes out onto the catcher here, and it will roll over. I say it's a 5 foot long print, so it's going to need catching for that. Well, it's printing well. Tells me I've got 2 minutes left here. Not bad time for a print this size. The paper will auto cut, so when I see the end of the picture appearing here, another useful bit for this little window, when I see that the print area has been fully covered, I'll get ready to catch it when it to stop it rolling up and rolling across the floor. If you are printing very big prints, take care of them. Now, I've got sample papers and inks here, so this isn't costing me anything if I mess it up. I would not want to be doing this if I was buying my own papers and inks for testing. Here we come. Interestingly, I have an error I've never seen. It is called a paper meander error. Roll paper is meandering. Continue printing with the current roll paper, or I can eject the paper. Well, the print has been printed. I'm presuming this means that it has drifted somewhat. It's detected that. There is no problem with it at the moment. I will re-roll the paper back in. I'm going to put continue. And it hasn't cut, so I'm press that and cut. Well, there we go. That was interesting. I've never ever come across a paper meandering error. I'm just going to put the print catcher back, give the print a moment or two to stabilise. The colours are intense. I've no idea what it would look like on this video, but here is my 5-foot long sunset print. Let's put that there and let's see if we can get the whole thing in the frame. Not a bad looking print. So there you have it. There's how to make a colour print of a sunset 5 foot by 2 foot. Just one little problem with it. As I say, handling prints, and even though these are only test prints, I do handle them carefully. It looks great. Look at detail. I'll get the hand lens out and have a look to see if there are any problems with it. This is purely a test on a relatively cheap paper. So if I was going to print this for display, there are 1 or 2 more adjustments I might make. I don't know, it depends on the paper. But then that's the joy of being able to just print stuff off like this and test things. That's why I suggest using small test prints on small samples of paper. Anyway, I hope this has been of some use. It's quite an impressive printer. Please do subscribe to the channel if you find it useful. I'm going to have lots more things using this printer whilst it's here. It's only here for a few weeks. I've got other stuff as well about lenses and the business of photography and other things. So I will, for people who are interested in stuff about lenses and things, I will return to more of that stuff as well. It's just that while I have a printer here for a few weeks and free paper and free ink, that's what I'm going to be concentrating on. So hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Bye.